are running for president address us tonight. And this one is really amazing. I can't say enough good things. Senator Kamala Harris has been a fearless advocate for the voiceless and the vulnerable, and a vocal, determined fighter on behalf of all people throughout her career. She was raised to believe public service is a noble cause, and the fight for justice is everyone's responsibility, and I couldn't agree more. As District Attorney and Attorney General, she fought every day on behalf of the people and stood to powerful interest groups and worked to reform the justice system from within. In the Senate, she co-sponsored legislation to provide the biggest tax cut for working and middle-class families in generations, protect the rights of refugees and immigrants, and make sure quality education and health care were within reach for all Americans. Senator Harris is a trailblazer, serving as the second African-American woman in history to be elected to the U.S. Senate. And as the first African-American woman and the first woman to serve as Attorney General of the state of California. Yes. And it is my honor and my privilege to welcome Senator Kamala Harris to the Battle Born Progress Celebrate Progress event.
Holding it down. You really are, and the work that you have been doing that is with great sacrifice, and it is selfless work. I know it is personal, but the work you have been doing here in this beautiful state is extraordinary. For the first time in 20 years, we have a governor who actually understands the importance of things like climate change and education. So thank you, because you inspire people that you may never meet, people that, you know, may never know your names, but you are inspiring people because of the work you all have been doing here. So I want to most of all thank you, thank you, thank you, and in particular, thank you for sending Catherine and Jackie to the Senate. In particular, I want to thank you for the time that you've taken and the conversations we've been having. I have been calling on and talking with your elected leaders so that I can make sure that as we proceed in this process that I am in touch with the issues and the concerns, because truly this is a process for me that is really important in terms of the listening part of the process. Because at the end of this process, the key for me is not only to win, but to be relevant. And if we are going to be relevant, it is going to be because we listen. So I want to thank all the elected leaders for your time. And in particular, thank you to Pat Spearman for your support. So it is great to be with you, and thank you, thank you, thank you. So I decided to do this thing recently and run for President of the United States. And we actually announced the election and our campaign 7 weeks ago yesterday, or on Sunday, in my hometown, place of my birth, Oakland, California. And it's been a great process. I don't know what it says about my personality, but I'm really enjoying this campaign. I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying spending time with our first cousins in Nevada. I'm enjoying spending time in Iowa and in South Carolina and New Hampshire. And It's been a great process, and so obviously it's at the beginning of what will be a long campaign, and as you can imagine, in particular journalists have been asking, why are you running, why are you running? And so I tell them, frankly, there are a few reasons. One of the reasons is that I know we all know, this is an inflection moment in the history of our country. This is a moment in time that is requiring us each and collectively to look in a mirror and ask a question. That question being, who are we? And what I think we all know is part of the answer to that question is we are better than this. And so, this is a moment in time where we must fight for the best of who we are, and fight we will. So people ask me, why are you running? And I tell them that. I tell them, well, I believe this is a moment in time in our country where we must restore the importance of truth and justice. This is a moment in time where we must restore equal opportunity for all Americans to achieve success. In addition to those points, I'll give you a personal reason that I'm running, and it really has to do with a simple point. My sister and I were raised by a mother who was all of 5 feet tall. If you had ever met her, you would have thought she was 7 feet tall. But she was that parent, that kind of parent, when if you came home complaining about something, my mother would look at you and she'd say, well, what are you going to do about it? So I decided to run for President of the United States. There you go. So, truth and justice. Restoring truth and justice in our country. So traveling around, I know what everyone, all the leaders in this room know. There are a lot of people in our country right now who rightly are extremely distrustful of our government, its institutions, and leaders. And the thing that we know about a relationship of trust is, by its very nature, a relationship of trust is reciprocal, right? You give and you receive trust. And one of the most important ingredients in trust is truth. But there's a funny thing about truth. Speaking truth can often make people quite uncomfortable. And for those of us who have a job that requires us to speak behind a microphone and a podium, there is an incentive that when we speak, we will make everyone happy. There is an incentive that when we speak, we will make everyone feel lovely. We will sprinkle lovely dust all over the room. Everyone will applaud and the job will have been done. Well, speaking truth doesn't always accomplish that goal. But there's another thing about speaking truth. Yes, people may walk away from that conversation thinking, I didn't particularly like what I had to hear. But they will also walk away from that conversation knowing it was an honest conversation. So let's speak some truth, and anyone who wants to be a leader in our country must have the courage to speak truth. So you all are now looking at me, okay, Kamala, what are some of the truths you have in mind? Well, I will share them with you. Let's speak truth. If Charlottesville didn't make it clear, if the Tree of Life Synagogue did not make it clear, racism, anti-Semitism, homophobia, transphobia, Islamophobia, these issues are real in our country. They are born out of hate that has been inspired by new fuel in these last couple of years, and we must collectively agree that whenever we see any evidence of that hate which has reached lethal proportion, that we must speak up, we must speak out. believe that anyone who is the object of that hate should never be made to fight alone. We must all stand with them. Let's speak truth. We are a society that pretends to care about education. I don't need to tell Nevada that. Pretends to care about education, but not so much the education of other people's children. Let's speak that truth. I've been traveling all over the country, and I have traveled this state, and I have met more teachers than I care to tell you that are working 2 and 3 jobs to pay bills. I have met teachers, and over 90% of the teachers in public schools in America, over 90% are coming out of their own pocket to pay for school supplies. We are not paying teachers their value. And let's be clear about this. There are 2 groups of people who are raising our children. Parents. There might be grandparents and aunties and uncles, and teachers. And we have got to recognize what they do for us and their value in our society. And we have got to do a better job when we also know that nationally, teachers make on average 10% less than similarly educated college graduates. And this pay gap is absolutely immoral and unconscionable, and that is why I am proposing, the first time in our nation's history, a federal investment to close the teacher pay gap. So nationally, that gap is about $13,500 a year. In Nevada, it will be $15,000 a year. And for the people who may not understand what this means, I think we all know, $15,000 a year, that's the equivalent of a year's worth of mortgage payments. $15,000 a year, that's the equivalent of a year's worth of groceries. $15,000 a year, that's a significant dent in student loan debt. On that last point, you know, there are brilliant students who are studying mathematics right now, who then they have a desire, a burning desire and passion to be a teacher. But they're looking at their bills, they're looking at their student loan debt, and instead of being able to go to a middle school and turn on the lights of a child to math, they have to go and work on Wall Street. We have brilliant students who are studying science, who want to go into an elementary school and teach our babies about the joys and wonders of the world. But instead, they're looking at their bills and they make a decision instead to go work for a pharmaceutical company. What kind of incentives are we creating? We have got to pay our teachers. I strongly believe that you can judge a society based on how it treats its children. And one of the greatest expressions of love that a society can extend to its children is to invest in the education of those children, and by extension, invest in those teachers. Let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. Climate change is real. Now, isn't it kind of sad that I had to say that? So I kid you guys not. So I've been in the United States Senate 2 years and some months. I was sitting in a United States Senate committee hearing where, I kid you not, the underlying premise of the hearing was essentially whether science should be the basis of public policy. Exactly. So let's be clear about something. And you know, I'll tell you, so I told you about my mother. Our mother was, she was a breast cancer researcher. She was a scientist. My mother had 2 goals in her life. to raise her 2 daughters and end breast cancer. In fact, she would take us to the lab with her, after school and on weekends. Little known fact, one of my first jobs, actually my first job ever, was cleaning pipettes. I was awful, she fired me. But the idea that supposed leaders on an issue that represents an existential threat to who we are as a species, that they would be pushing science fiction instead of science fact, is the height of irresponsibility and will end in peril to us as a species. And we have got to change who sits in the White House to deal with this most urgent threat. And on the subject of an issue that presents a real threat to the health and well-being of communities, let me be very clear. Yucca Mountain, not on my watch. So let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. That in America, just about now, in households around Nevada and other places in our country, families are sitting down to dinner, where the parents are looking at their children, middle school, elementary school, high school students. Honey, how was your day? They're asking. To which those students respond, wasn't a good day. Why, sweetheart? Well, we had a drill today. What happened in that drill? Well, we were taught how to run in a closet and hide in the case of there being a masked shooter roaming the halls of our school. Why, Mommy and Daddy, did we have to have that drill? And the answer, of course, is because there are supposed leaders in Washington, D.C. who have failed to have the courage to reject a false choice which suggests you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. There are supposed leaders in Washington, D.C. who have failed to have the courage to understand we must have smart gun safety laws in this country, starting with universal background checks and a rule of the assault weapons ban. Let's speak truth. Let's speak truth. Access to health care should not be a function of how much money you have in your back pocket and should be understood to be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford to have it, which is why I support the goal of Medicare for all. And don't get me started on the drug companies and what we need to do about them. When we know that in America today, 1 in 4 diabetes patients in America today cannot afford their insulin. We're dealing with an opioid crisis in our country. Many of you may know there is a syringe that contains a drug that, when injected, will save the life of someone who has overdosed on opioids. That syringe can cost up to $1,000 a shot. We have got to deal with this issue across the board. We have got to understand all people have a right to have access to the health care that will relieve their pain and save their lives. And this administration trying to get back to even getting rid of the Affordable Care Act, we're not going to have it. And we will fight. Anyone who wants to play politics with public health, we will fight. Let's speak truth. In our country today, there are families who sit down with their son when he turns 12 years old to have what's called the talk, wherein those families explain, son, you may be stopped, you may be arrested, you may be chased, you may be shot because of the color of your skin. Let's speak that truth in America today, and let's confront the reality that we have a criminal justice system that is badly in need of reform, that in many ways has been informed by bias, and if we focus on it, we can actually do something so that we do not have young men in our country who are fearing for their lives when we are better than that. Let's speak truth. Russia interfered in the election. Let's speak truth that we, for the sake of our security, cannot afford to have a commander-in-chief who takes the word of the Russian president over the word of the American intelligence community on that matter. We cannot afford to have a commander-in-chief who takes the word of a North Korean dictator over the word of the American intelligence community when it comes to a student, an American student, who was tortured and later died. We cannot afford to have a commander-in-chief who takes the word of a Saudi prince over the word of the American intelligence community when it comes to a journalist who was assassinated who has American credentials. We cannot afford it. Let's speak these truths. And I could go on, I got a lot more truths. But I'll end the truths with this, which I believe to be a fundamental truth and one of the most important truths that we must not only speak, but that we must feel and know in our hearts and in our souls, especially in this moment in time where there are so many powerful voices that are trying to sow hate and division among us. And that truth is this: the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. Let's speak that truth. Let's speak that truth. And I know it to be true. We know it to be true. I know it to be true based on what I call the middle of the night thought. You know, see, some people call that the 3 in the morning thought. You know, other people refer to that as the witching hour. You know what I'm talking about, right? When you wake up in the middle of the night with that thing that's been weighing on you, sometimes in a cold sweat. Well, for the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it is never through the lens of the party with which we're registered to vote. For the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it is never through the lens of some simple, discrete box that a pollster has put us in. And for the vast majority of us, when we wake up thinking that thought, it has to do with one of just a very few things. Our personal health, the health of our children or our parents. For so many Americans, can I get a job, keep a job, pay the bills by the end of the month, retire with dignity? For our students, can I pay off my student loans? For so many people in our country, can I help my family member get off their opioid addiction? The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And so, as I think about our march toward 2020, I say, let's not buy what they're trying to sell. Let's not buy that. Let's not buy them trying to divide us. Let's not buy them trying to have people point fingers at each other. Let's hold on to certain fundamental truths as we march toward 2020. And as we are on that march, let's also remember one of the greatest strengths of who we are as a nation and as a people. One of our greatest strengths, I believe, is that by our very nature, we are aspirational. We are an aspirational nature. We are a nation that was founded on noble ideals. Those ideals that were present in the writing of the Constitution of the United States and all of its amendments. Those ideals that were present in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights and those words we spoke in 1776 that we are all and should be treated as equals. Yes. We are aspirational. We are also clear-eyed. We've not yet reached those ideals. But we will fight. When we are strong, we will fight each and every day to get there. And that's the task before us. The task is to fight to get there. The task is to see what can be unburdened by what has been. The task is to fight for the soul of our country. The task is to remember this is a fight born out of love of country. And I'm just going to tell y'all, I fully intend to win this election. And I believe the strength of what we do will be because we fuel it with the optimism that is always the strength of any good fight. All good fights are born out of optimism. All good fights are born out of knowing what can be unburdened by what has been. And so that's how I think of this moment and this inflection moment. And my final point then is this. Years from now, our children, our grandchildren, others, they will look in our eyes, every one of us, and they will ask us, where were you at that inflection moment? Yeah. And what we're going to say, we're going to tell them about how we were here supporting Battle-Born Progress. And when they ask us, we will also tell them more than just how we felt at this inflection moment. We're going to tell them more than just how we felt. We're going to tell them what we did. We will tell them what action we took. We will tell them that we got involved, we spoke up, we spoke out, we organized, we registered people to vote, we touched our neighbors and our friends and our co-workers, and we reminded everyone that we are all in this together, and we reminded everyone that collectively we are going to always be the best of who we are when we are engaged and when we fight to get there, because that's how we win. I thank you. Once we move Senator Harris down, we need to give her space to move freely. So if you see me coming, I need you to move out of the way. So I'm going to thank you all for being here. Thank you for supporting our work. And please, eat, drink. We have more food up here. In just a few minutes, we'll let you back in this room. Thank you all for being here.